All right, now we're going to go a little old school. Sometimes you have yarn and you're not sure how much you need. In addition to using the program that on the Weave It, sometimes I like to use a paper and pencil. This is just one of many warp and weft calculation charts. This one I've just recently started using also when I'm teaching classes. It just seems pretty user-friendly. And what's nice about it, it has the imperial, the inches, as well as metric. What I did is I've already filled out this particular paper, and let's take a look at what we see here. Sometimes what I like to do, I like to write up on here exactly what it is I want to make. And in this situation, I wrote down towels, and they're 25 inches long. The width, it doesn't matter. Maybe, you know, I decided that maybe I'd like the finished width to be at least 14. These are small towels, or perhaps I could use these as placemats. Now, what I've done is I've added in here the finished length. There's 6 of them I'd like to make for 25 and 25 inches long. And I start to fill in all the different numbers here. And I also have to add, they suggest if you're going to do fringe or hems, 2 inches per towel. I've decided I always use the largest shrinkage because I want to make sure I have enough fabric. So I put 20%. The 20% goes when you add these two numbers together. 20% was 32 inches. And then I decided that loom waist is 20 inches. You might want to add more depending on your loom. You add all of that up, you get 216 total inches. But of course, in weaving, we think in yards. So we're going to then divide that, and it comes out to 5.9. Well, we might as well round that up to 6 yards. It's so close. You might also want to add a whole other yard or a half a yard, especially if you're new to weaving. Maybe you want to play around a little bit with the yarn before you or your patterns before you actually do your finished products. Now, the next is the width. So now we just did A, now we're going to do the width. Like I said, I'd like to have at least 14 inches wide, and I decided 10% of that is 1.4. Then the shrinkage, again, I just made up a little bit. I put 0.6 in there. I'm not sure how much the weft yarn will shrink. And then again, you add it all up. And you come up with 16 inches when you add that up. Sometimes I play with the numbers to get everything to add up. And in the loom, it's going to be 18 EPI. And they're telling me that I am going to need 288 ends. However, the pattern that I've decided, you can always add a few here and there if you need to. And to balance my pattern out, I'm going to add 4 more, which makes it 292 ends. So if you were watching when I did or listened through the Weave It program, that's what I came up with. So now I have all the warp. So we just did A. We're finished with the warp. And it tells me 6 yards I put here for A. And then here is the 292 over here. And it's telling me that I need at least 1,752 yards to do my project. Again, I like to round up, so I want to make sure I have at least 2,000 yards whenever I'm purchasing the yarn or when I'm figuring out how much yarn I need. You can also do the weft by using this calculation. A lot of times I know that if I need that much for the warp, I need a little less for the weft. Maybe 80%, maybe 85%. So sometimes I just do a calculation with that. But if you want to see another way to do this, this is what you can do. You can take the width of 16 inches, and again, I did another 10%, 1.6. You add that together, you have 17.6. Then, again, the picks per inch. It's really hard sometimes to figure that out. The ends per inch are 18. Rarely, I think I said before, rarely are you going to be able to do 18 both directions, but I know there are people that do that and they work really hard to have a perfectly balanced weave. That's something that does not concern me when I'm doing towels and things. It all really looks nice at the end. But that's a whole other lesson and probably someone else to explain all of that to you rather than me. All right, I put all that together, and they're doing inches here, which kind of makes me a little like, wow, look how much I need. So sometimes you do the inches for one. That means going back and forth for 1 inch. So when you're weaving, just that 1 inch is telling you you need approximately 264 inches. Now this is where I sometimes make my mistake. It says total length of warp. Well, you have to do it in inches. So I had to take 6 times 36 and got 216. Then you multiply that all and you get all those inches. You're like, wait a minute, I don't need that much yarn. No, you need to divide it by 36. So you end up with 1,584 yards for the weft. And again, if you look up here, it's less than you need for the warp because you have loom waste in the warp that you're not going to be weaving all of the yarn on that and also the take up and so on. So that's one of the forms you could use to do some calculating to make sure you have enough yarn. It doesn't go on with the designing, but it does a little bit with the calculating.